Because I didn't see it for the first time until like high school.
But yeah, like, you know.
Even though it's like his most successful.
And like North by Northwest.
It's hard to kind of like, because Psycho is such a, keep in mind that like this movie, first movie to show a toilet, like.
Yeah, this movie and just like how Hitchcock seeing all the like Roger Corman.
And it's like, this almost feels like he kind of made it as a joke. No studios wanted to touch it. Like the book, it's based on the book by Robert Bloch. Norman Bates was like kind of like a fat, middle-aged, gross guy. Like ever.
Yeah.
Just really show you different like sides of him.
Yeah, but like he's a relate.
And I don't know if people talk about this, but like the iconography is I love, like the old, I think Hitchcock called the house like California Gothic. You see more of like Fairvale, the town nearby.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's like a William Castle-esque gimmick.
It absolutely is. Like, you know, it's not, again, like William Castle would be in a lot of his trailers. A wonderful degree, like a whole bigger thing.
And I was like, that's always been weird to me that people talk about the movies, like the toilet's in there.
There it is.
I always wondered about that. I was like, is that? I always thought that might be like a. Then I always wonder about that. Like, were people rioting in the theater when they saw the trailer? Like,
and so Hitchcock was like, make it, you know, have to be in the movie, like make it part of the plot.
Because now it's considered like a classic.
Yeah.
The amount of like sexuality, like I mean, through like half of her scenes.
Yeah.
Which is just like this beautiful,
confusing, like just from the way you're looking at shots, like it's like such a strange thing to look at.
It looks like an image from a dream. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't look natural or real. Like I can't imagine like the editing of it.
Yeah.
And like the continuity, how it's like there'll be a shot of, and she's in like the same motion, but when it wasn't before, like
Right.
nothing lines up. It's in like every cut is.
And yeah, like even the shot of like just Janet Leigh's torso with her belly button, like you couldn't even put a belly button on TV.
Sounds violent, like that. Read. I mean, there's a reason everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So like when you think of it, you think of a knife stabbing into skin. Like
Yeah,
it has that unnerving. He said something like he thought it would make it more like stark and shocking.
Without the score on it, was just like Herman, like a huge bonus. It's just like this movie is a third you.
And that's again, like I wish I could watch this for the first time. You sympathize with her, like you understand her dilemma, almost like chance that's in the movie, like even from the first shot. And then there's that great.
Right.
It's like, hey, that's what set this whole story in motion. Like so much happens in that scene. So many like her reaction to him and just like the angles, like, oh sure.
Like that's really where it's just like, okay, we're gonna.
Well, that's a long dialogue
Yeah.
scene. It holds on Norman, and it's like, okay. And then the shower scene happens,
Yeah.
and then like that long, meticulous cleaning up afterwards. Like it's
so methodical and
yeah.
just having to clean up after his mother and just like.
Like this is now we're with these characters that are just to kind of like inform you of what the actual story is. Well, and it's also like, again, I wonder what this would have been like to see it for the first time. Black humor of just like how it was sort of feudal.
But it's kind of tough too because like where it's just like it's that shot again, it's this thing again. But number two so just like worked into the general language of film by that point.
Right.
So it's just like, yeah, it's a ripoff.
The audience are like, what the fuck is happening?
But just the way that it like,
yeah,
just like, hey, okay, bye.
And there's a lot of that where it's sort of like a lot of like. And it's always that sort of like, like I don't know if you want to call him a slasher movie villain, but I just love that it was like Hitchcock just kind of did it. And it was like this sleazy little thing that he was doing. And it's like, it makes sense that would be. My kind of like, my version of it is that the studio was like, because this is, what was it, 82? Mm-hmm. This is like the height of the slasher movies. But there was like, every week there was a new slasher movie. So I'm picturing Universal being like, hey, these slasher movies are big. It was just going to be like a made-for-TV movie.
Real, like, good people.
Anthony Perkins got on board. They're like, oh, we should, that are sort of like, it's speaking of Hitchcock, it's like Rear Window. People are just kind of like forgiving of him.
Like, it's a small town thing, just like, you know, he's one of ours.
People would be like Lila. Oh,
Clan.
sure.
Just like, you know, they have to stay and get the sense, just like somebody's fucking with Norman.
Like, that's pretty crazy.
You know, you get that sense, like, people are dying.
Because it's like, you want to root for it.
For maybe Dennis Franz, it's just like,
there were things like there's a lot of attention to the first movie, but yeah, like he's working in the diner and there's is like a newcomer to town, so you're wondering like why, like the more she learns about him, like why is she so sympathetic towards him and willing to like stay in his house?
Just about anybody, like, I mean, that's the thing, like people are nice to him, but they're not.
Kind of like a flaw where you're like, this seems like she's kind of,
okay.
It's like, oh, she's a part of this.
Empathy, like she, even up to that point is already just like, you can tell that she's, then you're starting to worry just like, oh, is the movie going to pull everybody? Like, oh, that would be terrible. Like, college, and just like it was, that was all these sequels. It's just like a lot of mix-ups around like who's actually doing the killing.
At some points you're like, maybe it's Meg Tilly.
You don't have a sense. Like I kind of thought for the two like 80s.
We have this like classic killed in like a Jason Voorhees.
Just like, yeah, it stood out to me. It's just like, oh, we're trying to like, knives are big, gore, and like, but to me, like shots like that.
It's like, I mean, Hitchcock.
Character at the end too, where like you're down.
When I say the iconography, like the idea of making just this tell in the foreground, but making it feel like
everything in the action, just like.
And then just the image of like mother in the window. Just, and it's like everything's kind of come full circle. Like they really could have fallen on their face.
But yeah, there's like particularly about that point, he's like he's very confident. He's got this new friend. Like he really plays it wonderfully.
So Universal is like, let's keep going. He's so like, he's not like the hard edge. He's just like this.
Like we're kind of primed, like particularly as I was watching the sequels pretty close to each other. Like I'm primed, like we're ready for Norman to be, oh, I've heard that before. And I was thinking it must be like it's like you're in the deep end.
Yeah, the first movie, how it's like, it starts with that hotel and it's like you could go into any room. Have that kind of anthology feel of like, oh, here's another person.
Like a Halloween thing where it's just like.
But it's like an antique store.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of charm. Like, I mean, well, we hear like this funky version of it.
Some kind, like, so there's like music, like pop music on the soundtrack. Crappy, like, but like it's too comedic heights. Like 2 days after he's moved into the.
Whatever that music is, it's very like. But it's like, yeah, he's got these two lamps.
Just like, oh.
But I feel like another influence on the movie was like the kind of Italian giallo films. Because like the lighting in that scene, and then like the shots of her feet kind of dancing on the broken glass, like, and then a lot of the lighting too, like the purple lighting in that scene, the back room at the parlor.
There's a lot of, like a very colorful palette.
There's like this bright green light.
Porter that's there to like.
I do like her. She's kind of got this like old, like 1940s. Every line is delivered with like the same inflection.
She only had like 2 modes for the most part. Like there was a little wiggle room between, like around each of those, but it was just like, her motivations seemed off a lot, and just like
the first movie, and you're like, are we just gonna make the first movie again? But that kind of like,
but it's just like, so why did you want to
courting? The scenes with them like out on a date, they're in like this like tacky old, like it's like an old person's supper club. Well, it's so great because it's like there's barely anyone else there, but then he's like teaching her how to dance, and it just cuts to the guy playing piano, and he's just like.
In the third movie when it happens, it's just like, we needed to do this. It's just like, we have to do this.
You gotta just put it in there.
At the bottom of the stairs, so like, whoops.
From a story perspective, it feels like a more kind of typical generic sequel, especially the visual style. Like I love the lead up. The first time we've seen him like dressed up as mother since the first movie. And it happens pretty quick. It's just like, oh, he's doing this again.
Yeah.
But there's like a shot of the knife, and it's like turned in a way where it looks like you're looking under the crack of a door.
No, I mean, that's what I've been talking about this whole time. It's just like his plan is to.
He's like sweaty and like that.
Like he's gotten, so like I feel like he's and he feels like that's the way he's gonna get out of it is to.
I love in that scene too, there's like a Woody Woodpecker cartoon. It is sort of weird, like the first woman gets killed in the phone booth. That's where it's like, that's clearly the Coen brothers influence. That sort of like macabre humor.
Yeah. She's like the only one. She's just like, I just need somewhere to piss. Oh, I'm dead.
Conventional sequel where it's like, well.
Comes in, it's just like, meh.
Yeah.
Last movie, just like.
The end, and he's like, you're not getting out ever now. Yeah, that's right, because like the background goes dark. It's like half sequel, half prequel.
Yeah, and he's just like, fuck all that.
Like late night talk show. Problem that most prequels have, where it's like, we don't need to see this.
Buy on this movie. It's just like, it really, everybody. Because it's just like, there's that confrontation scene. Norman calls into this talk show and it's just like, well, I
think that's part of my problem with it is like, I just can't picture him in that scenario. Married and having like this normal domesticated, and also calling into this talk show and just like spilling his guts about all this stuff. Like, if he's trying to stay under the radar, like,
whatever child he would have, like the bloodline has to end with him.
But it's like, either do a prequel or do a sequel. And it kind of like, there's this kind of like, back and forth of like, it doesn't feel like either
flashback or whatever, but like it feels like it's supposed to be sort of disjointed. And I think it really, like the build up to, she's fantastic, and she's like
played that up more too, like almost a contrast between, and then also showing like what it really was.
As canon in the fourth one, there's definitely like discrepancies there, like, and like you've got, there's like, and she finally, actually, this is a really good speech. It's just like,
And that whole ending feels like, wow, I think that's my problem with the whole movie, is that sort of like imbalance.
Yeah.
And that's only like, I think he did like 3 or 4 more movies after this. I thought you meant like a remake or something, because everybody says like, oh, it's so pointless. When they were like, why are you remaking Psycho? His answer was something like, so no one else can. Where it's like, almost like, because he was using, Gus Van Sant has made these statements about like pointless sequels or pointless remakes, the same end results, like no matter how closely you try and replicate it. So I think it was like sort of like where it was like intended to fail. I'm not trying to like, I've always wondered like, was that his goal? It was just like, just to show like, this is why you don't do this.
Yeah, see?
Well, he would have been like a teenager at that point, right?
Yeah.
Be like a time period, like it's a new updated version of that story. Completely uninteresting side stories like the B plots.
Okay.